If UK politics on the left looks divided with the launch of Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana's new party, which has split Labour, then it has to be said the civil war on the right just gets more bitter and more complicated by the day. Tommy Robinson has, in the past 24 hours, come out and reversed his previous endorsement at the last election of Nigel Farage and said that only Rupert Lowe can be Prime Minister. Meanwhile, Rupert Lowe, who has just this week launched his new group, Restore Britain, has been attacked as a nutter by Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, in a set-piece interview with the Sun newspaper to mark 1 year as an MP. So let me tell you what he said, because this is really important. The context is important. It's about mass deportations. And the Sun writes, Sun's political editor Jack Elson writes, in recent months, his friend turned foe, Rupert Lowe, has accused him of going soft on his pledge to deport all illegal immigrants after conceding it would be impossible. Farage irritatedly waves him away. I'm really sorry, but you get the odd nutter in politics. Now, speaking to sources close to Restore Britain, I am told that Farage, while he may not be as worried about Advance UK and Ben Habib, is increasingly concerned about the momentum behind Lowe's movement. But again, I would argue, in the same way that I said the arrogance of Sarah Poach in dismissing Ben Habib so revoltingly on GB News earlier in the week, that Farage dismissing Lowe, someone who was an MP for his party, who was elected under the Reform UK banner with him as leader, and who most Reform UK supporters think is a great man, is not only arrogant, it's politically deadly. Here's how Farage dealt with the situation when he was asked about both Lowe and Habib on the Labour broadcasting company LBC earlier this week. Big news! Outspoken is now available as a podcast too. So please do subscribe wherever you get yours, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and make sure you rate and review. I'll take 5 stars, if you may.
From Pat in Worcester Park, who points out that some of your former colleagues have launched new parties. Rupert Lowe, Restore Britain, Ben Habib, Advance UK. How concerned are you, asks Pat.
I think there are now 15 centre-right political parties, all one-man bands, all led by people whose egos are much bigger than the reality of the impact they.
But I think to dismiss what Rupert Lowe is doing with Restore Britain as a one-man band is intellectually dishonest. I mean, you've seen in the past week Susan Hall, the head of the Conservatives in London, joining Restore Britain. So too, the storied historian David Starkey. And also Tommy Robinson now throwing his weight behind Lowe, posting this man is literally the only MP fighting for the British people. That came after Rupert had declared Palestinian migrants. I have just one question to the MPs pushing for an asylum resettlement scheme. Are you mad? Dozens of MPs have asked Starmer to urgently establish a Ukraine-style visa system to allow Gazans to come to Britain. The pro-Palestine lobby is attempting to further hijack our politics. I have tabled a motion in Parliament to hopefully counter that insane narrative. It is so important that like-minded MPs come together to back this motion. We have seen just how weak Starmer is, and sadly I fear the suggestion to establishment a Gaza migrant scheme may gather momentum. Many of these people are those that chair the murderous Hamas through the streets. Let's show some resistance. Please ask your MP to sign my motion. We must not have a single Palestinian being allowed to claim asylum in Britain. Now, the other weak spot for Nigel Farage, which has been pointed out by Tommy Robinson this week, came when there was a reminder that it's now been 70 days since Farage said he would reveal his deportation plan in 3 to 4 weeks' time. That reminder prompted Tommy to very specifically say to his millions of Uniting the Kingdom supporters, Nigel is not the answer, Rupert Lowe is. A reminder, by the way, this was the declaration made by Nigel Farage before those local elections.
We will, in 3 to 4 weeks' time, announce more detailed policy on how we will actually carry out those deportations.
Connor Tomlinson, we've obviously had nada on that. Absolute silence. So is Nigel Farage correct when he just dismisses Habib, dismisses Lowe? Or do you actually sense what I do, which is that there is some form of momentum behind Restore Britain? It's almost like what happened in the early days with the Tea Party in the US, which would, of course, end up creating the MAGA movement and taking over the Republican Party.
So on two separate issues there, Dan. The first is that Reform's promise to provide a robust deportations plan. Well, first of all, they could have just partnered with plenty of people that have been speaking about this on the policy front for ages now, like Mike Jones or Centre for Migration Control. But instead, Reform seemed determined to leave a lot of talent on the table because they basically can't bring them under the Reform umbrella and control all of their output. There's a lot of mistrust, despite a thriving right-wing ecosystem, which actually picks a lot more meritoriously because they were gatekept out of traditional institutions like the Conservative Party and the left for ages. So if they just listen to people like that, it might be easier. But instead, Farage has retreated from not just the policy to deport every single illegal immigrant, which he tweeted out on election day on July the 4th. So it was an electoral promise that they've now rode back on. But he's also retreated from that promise made right before the local election. I'm seeing a pattern here that, telling the people that you'll do exactly what they want you to do right before the election comes due, but then backing away from it in the interim. He's since backed away from it when talking to Fraser Nelson in Fraser Nelson's odious Channel 4 documentary, because Fraser Nelson himself is quite odious. He said that mass deportations is just an ambition. So there isn't a clear plan, it isn't a principle, it isn't a promise, it's just some sort of vague commitment that he knows that Reform voters and the public at large want and expect, but they're not really sure on if they want to or how to deliver it yet. As far as Restore Britain and comparisons to the Tea Party, I mean, I know people that are running this. Charlie Downs is a very dear friend of mine, and I've gotten to know Rupert decently over the last few months, and he's a real gentleman. So I really hope it succeeds. I've spoken to them behind the scenes and look forward to participating in their polls and policy proposals in future. And they've got some really good talent on board, like David Starkey, as you mentioned. The comparison to the Tea Party is important because Restore has been adamant that it is not a political party. And that's because enough political parties already exist. I wish Ben Habib all the best with his enterprise. I've said that to him. However, what the moment needs right now is not another political party springing up from the arid soil. Instead, Rupert understands that he can act as a kind of one-man opposition, a pressure group, to do one of, I think, three things. First of all, you can bring Parliament to a standstill. Constant petitions that get over 100,000 signatures in one day, proposing policies that the parties themselves feel pressure to commit to. Even Labour adopted his migrants must speak English mandate, so they've raced to catch up to Rupert Lowe. Number two, he can force Reform in a kind of right-wing arms race to actually catch up to his positions, even if they don't credit him for it. And that benefits everyone, right? Because if Reform, as they are still dominating the polls, are the presumptive government of 2029, I don't care what colour rosette anyone wears, I just care what policies they implement. This is why I've always been able to criticise Reform. Yeah, and this is why I've remained independent, despite speaking at Reform's conference before. If Rupert Lowe can force his old party to adopt his policies, which the public wants, brilliant news, the country will be fixed and we'll have nothing to moan about. The third thing that they could do is, as some have suggested, force the hand of the Conservative Party, given Kemi Badenoch is radioactively unpopular, and even Tim Shipman moving from the Times to the Spectator having made Badenoch's career quite literally, and then, helped her ascend to the front of the Tory party without much merit, frankly. Even he's saying Badenoch's on a sinking ship right now and she's going to be replaced very, very soon. Now, I like Robert Jenrick. I've met him, nice fella, seems to be a sincere convert, but he hasn't necessarily got the star power of Rupert Lowe. And so bringing Lowe into the fold, having him in the shadow cabinet, letting him do the ministerial rounds for 4 years and allowing him to be the policy nexus and a sort of emblem of the true transformation of the Conservative Party, while also kicking Priti Patel out on day one, I might advise, that would also allow for another existing vehicle to actually enact the right-wing policies that Restore Britain is putting to the forefront.
But first, you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected, but I've been increasingly thinking of the need too for personal protection from snoopers, from bad actors, from hackers, all online. And I'm delighted to tell you I've found the fail-safe solution, and this virtual private network, or VPN, is a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. So I want to introduce you to Surfshark, an incredible, easy-to-use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activities stay safe so you can shop, you can stream, you can browse, you can conduct your banking in complete privacy online. But the benefits of Surfshark go way beyond keeping you safe. It also allows you to access your favorite entertainment and news shows and international streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, Peacock, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and if your favorite shows are geo-blocked, within seconds you can be watching as if you're in another country. Really helpful, by the way, for traveling for work or on holiday. I did this recently when I went to Barbados. I could still get all of my favorite content from home using Surfshark, including sports. Plus, it's an insurance policy against creeping censorship in so many countries which do block particular services like Rumble, for example. What Surfshark allows you to do is watch anything, anytime, anywhere. True freedom. Plus, and I didn't know this, a VPN can save you money, because you can get the best deals from websites that actually change their prices depending on which part of the world you are buying from. You can use Surfshark on unlimited devices, meaning your entire household can stay safe with just one subscription. And there are over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, meaning a world of choice is at your fingertips with 24/7 customer service if this is your first time using a VPN. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. And this is super important. Surfshark is so confident that it is the best VPN in the world that you can give it a try for a full 30 days. And if you're not entirely satisfied, you will get your money back. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken right now for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. But now, back to the show. Absolutely, I completely agree with you. This is about opening the Overton window, shifting it all together. And that's why when people say to me, oh, but you're potentially risking dividing the vote. Right. We are 4 years out from an election. Right now, Reform UK, and let me just be very blunt about this, Reform UK, as it stands today, does not have the policy prescription required to save this country, to even come close. I mean, remember, they're still going on a net zero immigration policy at the moment without mass deportation. So I'm totally with you on that, Connor. And that's why I think Rupert actually got it right by saying this isn't a party. Maybe in the future it will be, but it's not a party right now. It's a movement, because I think that's why so many more people have been open to joining and supporting, because that's what the desire is for. And actually, Rupert has made a very good video, actually, just summing up exactly what his aims are. Have a watch of this and I'll get you to react off the bat, Connor.
Britain is in decline. Brutal, relentless decline. The British people are crying out for leadership, and there is a yawning gap for a serious, authentic vehicle around which the country's conservative-minded majority can rally, organise and exert influence. Many have tried to fill this gap, but the British system is all but impervious to true political insurgency. Now is not the time for another party. What the country needs is a mouthpiece. Organisation is power, and Britain's elites, however detached they are, cannot ignore the united voice of the British people. That is why we're launching Restore Britain. We're an independent, non-partisan group for British citizens concerned with the political, economic, cultural, and social condition of our country. We will build a policy platform together. A movement will be created together. A path will be forged together. Being in Parliament, I am uniquely positioned to hold the government to account. Our independent rape gang inquiry is the most successful crowdfunding effort in British political history. And in less than 24 hours, our parliamentary petition to release Lucy Connolly received over 100,000 signatures. Just think what we could achieve if we were doing that every week. And I need your help. As a member of Restore Britain, you will have the opportunity to vote on the policies and principles that you believe in. With this data, we will put pressure on the government and other political parties to recognise and act on the will of the British people. We will set the agenda in Westminster. I look forward to joining you all on this journey. We must now come together to restore Britain.
Do you know what I love? It's the opposite of a lot of the hype around Reform UK. And don't get me wrong, so much of what Reform UK is doing is very slick and very clever and looks like it's come out of some posh ad agency. But I just don't necessarily know if it always has that same sort of authenticity. And another reason, by the way, Connor, that I think it's proof that Rupert is doing the right thing. Hope, not hate, are worried. Because look at this post. I've said, Connor, everyone's watching Nigel Farage, but it's also worth keeping an eye on the man he forced out of Reform UK, Rupert Lowe. Lowe is positioning himself as a leading voice on the far right, launching his own rival Restore Britain movement this week. So, Connor, I put it to you that Reform UK is worried and Hope Not Hate are worried, which means that dismissing this in the way that Nigel Farage did on LBC is probably a little bit naive.
Yes, well, it seems that Richard Tice allows Hope Not Hate to vet Reform UK's candidates, whereas Rupert Lowe allows Hope Not Hate to write his endorsements. So that's the pretty big dividing line between both men. Also, that background where Rupert Lowe is shooting the thing looks mightily familiar. You might be able to see that on Thompson Talk sometime. As far as...
You're giving away your secrets, Connor.
I'm not giving them the address. I'm just saying we happen to share a decor for where we decided to film. As far as Rupert's initiative and his enterprise, yeah, this is the difference between, I think... So I know Nigel's denounced the term populism, but this is the difference between a kind of gauche conception of populism versus what populism actually should be. Populism is not racing to catch up to where you think public opinion already is. Because if you're in politics, you're in a bubble. And your perception of public opinion is usually set by how good your pollsters are. And at the moment, Reform's internal pollsters, as I've spoken to some former Brexit loyalists who really want Farage to succeed, have told me their polling is not great internally, as in they aren't in touch with the issues that people actually want because their methodology isn't as good as it used to be. And it's set by the media if you're constantly speaking to them. Now, if you're speaking to independent media, like you, Dan, you might be a bit more in touch with what the people want. But if you're only speaking to the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Fraser Nelson, and Sly News, then you're not going to get a sufficient barometer of what the British people want. And
Connor, really interesting point, and it relates to a video I want to show you, actually, because I would argue as well, also LBC. Because there used to be this idea that the callers into LBC had their finger on the pulse of the nation. And it's actually the opposite now, because these are the types of callers that look up to someone like James O'Brien. And I think we actually got a really good example of that with Farage on this phone-in with Nick Ferrari this week. Watch.
It was a disaster. You don't have any policies. You don't show us an MP. Last summer, you incited race riots on our streets. You're now anti-gay marriage and anti-women's rights.
Right, well,
so why do you think that you're fit to lead the country?
Don't vote for me. Please don't vote for me. Thank you. I'm not here to please everybody. I am here to stand up for what I think are the right courses of action.
But some would say you did that over Brexit, and I think had Dan been able to enter into conversation with you, he'd have said, and Brexit has been a disaster, Mr.
Well,
Farage.
he probably got poisoned at university or something like that.
But you think Brexit's not been a disaster?
No, of course it's not been. How is getting back the right to govern your own country? How can that...
And Connor, it's just so depressing, isn't it? Farage only wants to play the old media game.
Yes, and if you want to do that, you've got to have the kind of constitution that J.D. Vance has, where you actually thrive under that spotlight and you enjoy being a pugilist and dismantling their narratives to their face. I quite enjoy that, frankly, as people have seen when I argue with a room full of boomers. But this is the difference between that brand of populism with it tries to meet the people where they are and it gets its perceptions distorted. And Rupert Lowe's brand of populism, which is acting as a kind of minesweeper, creating permission for the public who don't have parliamentary privilege to voice their concerns, all reasonable and popular, on issues that have been rendered verboten by that exact kind of sclerotic, highly controlled media class that, unfortunately, Reform seem wedded to. I think they should move into the thriving alternative media space, they should take a few more risks, and they should listen to their advisors like Matt Goodwin and now my friend James Orr, and take a bit of courage and make the most of the opportunities being given them by the electorate.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.